The man in the nursing home began his story in a slow, weak voice. He was in a wheelchair, facing the window. I was 30 years old, writing an assignment for a community college class. It was creative writing. The nurse at the main desk said that she knew of a man with a Christmas story that was worth telling, and he told it well. He said it was a cold night. The snow was falling, but it wasn't really snow. It was more like white bricks. And it wasn't really a white Christmas. It was a hard one. The year was 1938, and the place was Avondale, Alabama. It was the apex of the Great Depression, although it's not what people called it back then. Back then, they simply called them hard times, and they were hard, bone hard. The family lived in a ratty apartment. There were four of them to a room. A mom, a dad, two kid brothers. They were hard up. The two boys were good kids. They were obedient, well behaved, freckled. Their pa worked at the textile mill. Their mother did too. In fact, in a few years, the boys would be working at the mill also. Kids worked at mills in those days, or different times. What the boys wanted that year, most of all, were bicycles. But family Christmases were lean, and when you could hardly afford enough beans to feed two grown boys, you don't buy bicycles. The boys, for example, ate ketchup soup for supper. The parents frequently ate oxygen casserole. But one year, for Christmas, the boys were out collecting scrap tin to raise money for their bikes. As I said, different times. And when the boys finally raised enough money gathering tin, they went directly into town to exchange their tin for cash. And on the way home, something happened. They found something. It was a roll of money. It was 10 $1 bills wrapped in a rubber band. It was lying in the street, in the gutter. And in 1938, 1939, $10 was at least worth 200, more in cash. It was a miracle from on high, but still, it wasn't their money. So they did what any two good little boys would do. They asked whether the locals knew of anybody who was missing money, but nobody knew of any loss. The grocer said, "Boys, I'll keep the money for 3 days, and if nobody comes forward to claim it, then it's yours." Well, 3 days went by. Nobody claimed it. The boys knew exactly what they'd do with the windfall. On Christmas morning, when their folks woke up, the parents found a sight in their living room. For Mama, there were sewing needles, dressmaking shears, bolts of fabric, and a new coat, new shoes. They bought cigars for their father and a new suit of clothes and a snappy new hat. They bought nothing for themselves. The two parents were in shell shock. "Where did you get all this?" they asked their children. The boys explained about finding the money on the street, and when they finished their telling, their father broke down and he wept. The father looked at them with bright eyes and tears on his cheeks, and he told them a story. He said he had been on his way home from work one Friday, and he'd cashed a large paycheck. It was $10. He got it from working overtime, and he was on his way home to buy his sons bicycles. He was going to give them boys bicycles for Christmas. But somehow he lost the money, and he never said a word about it because he was too ashamed. "You shouldn't have done this," their father said. "You shouldn't have bought all this." And everyone held each other and they cried. They had a huge Christmas dinner that holiday, and in all his years, that old man said it was the greatest Yuletide he could ever remember, never to be outdone. I asked the old man, I said, "Did you ever get a bicycle finally?" The old man wiped his damp eyes and he said words I'll never forget. He said, "Who needs a bike when you have love?" I got a C on that creative writing assignment.